Hey, what's up everyone? Icy Cat here, and this time we're going to go in depth with the new GEO defender, Mira, as we examine all of this operator's strengths and weaknesses and the best tips and tricks to enhance your play as well as what to be careful of. Mira is the newest defender for Operation Velvet Shell for the GEO CTU. She's a heavy 3 armor character, and that makes her a slow 1 speed rating on movement. A real quick note on pronunciation. Her name is said as Mira by most English-speaking people, but true Spanish-speaking people pronounce it a little differently with a bit of a rolling R that comes off. It almost sounds like a D sound to those that are used to just English. Whether you say it as the English Mira or the Spanish Mira or some regional dialect variation of that, it's fine either way. We all know what you mean. Let's start by taking a look at her loadout. Her primary SMG is the Vector. It has fairly low damage, especially considering the size of a .45 caliber round, but I'm sure that's just for game balancing purposes rather than realism because this thing puts out a lot of lead. With a fire rate of 1200, you'll run your magazine dry pretty quick if you're not careful. The Vector is kind of like the FAMAS F2 of submachine guns. Low damage, but you barely even notice due to the sheer volume of rounds it puts out, combined with a fairly stable recoil profile, especially when paired with the compensator and foregrip for control. Ammo capacity is a bit on the low side at 25 rounds, but that's fairly standard for a 45 round SMG mag. Of special note is that this is one of the few guns in the game that offers a 2-round burst option in the fire select controls, allowing you to double tap with every trigger pull if used that way. Next is the ITA 12L long barrel shotgun. This is a pump, but it cycles fairly quickly nonetheless. It feels very punchy with solid impacts, good damage, and both of these weapons have great sounds when you use them. Damage is 47 with a decent 8-round ammo capacity for a shotgun. The spread is good enough to use it as is, or you can throw on a laser for tighter hipfire control if you prefer. Secondary pistol is the USP-40 with a decent 43 damage rating and a 12-round magazine. Or you can go for the new secondary option of the ITA 12S short barrel shotgun. This does 66 damage, but you will have far shorter range than you get with the long barrel version. It also has less ammo capacity at 5 rounds instead of 8. Another interesting thing to note here is that they keep their ammo pools separately, so even though they both have the same 12-gauge shotgun shells, using one does not cut into the ammo reserve of the other. This is a great tool for making murder holes and is my must pick for her, as it also combos in an interesting way with her ability, which I'll show you in a minute. Secondary gadgets are a choice between a deployable shield or a nitro cell. You can use the nitro offensively or help shape the map by connecting rooms or making new sightlines. Her ability is to deploy up to 2 of these black mirrors. It's a one-way bulletproof mirror that you can place on either reinforced or non-reinforced walls. There's also a gas canister you can break, which will cause the glass panel to drop out and leave you with a murder hole instead. While you can cause that canister to break by shooting it from the inside, so can anyone else, which does include attackers that can get a shot on the back side of the panel. As you can see from the outside, you can't see into the room. If you look really closely, it does ever so slightly reflect the environment back, but from most angles it looks more matte black than reflective. The other side grants full visibility, so the defenders can see out, but the attackers can't see in. This glass is of course bulletproof. Even Glaz can't penetrate this glass, even though he can shoot out the windows on plane. This is more specifically designed for ballistics and is of higher grade. It doesn't even leave cracks in the glass on impact like shield visors would get. You can place them standing or from a crouch position, though not prone. The light on top is red until you line it up correctly for valid placement, and then it'll turn green. You may also get the on-screen message about not having enough room to place it. Usually you just need to shift around until you get the right alignment, unless the area really is too small. As I was mentioning before, you can also shoot the canister on the bottom of the inside of the panel and cause it to drop. There's a slight delay before it does, and anyone on the outside will hear the gas canister vent and see a cloud of gas from the outside before the panel falls. Another thing you can't do is place it on the back side of reinforced walls. So on the all black and red side you can attach it, but on the side with the red crosses that stick out, you will get an on-screen message saying you cannot put it on that side. That's probably done to prevent team griefing as much as possible. I mean, a person could just put the reinforced panel on backwards too and then do it, but this is at least a small step to help reduce that. There's a few other things she can't do with the mirror windows. They won't go on barricades or castle panels. They also only go on walls. And yeah, even a trapdoor that's been reinforced won't accept a window panel, so don't even bother trying them on the floors. As of the recording of this video, these have a fatal flaw. There's a clipping error that allows you to melee the gas canister right through the window if you hit it in the right spot. And this means that attackers can get a free murder hole by running up to it. This is a huge problem, and it's known by Ubisoft on their list of known errors they maintain, and will be fixed as soon as they can. If you're watching this video at a later date, then I can only hope this problem has been fixed by then, because right now it's pretty much game breaking for her. Okay, so going back to how to use her most effectively. I was talking before about how her secondary shotgun combos with her panels really well, so let me explain that. As you can see, I'm trying to find the steepest angle of view I can see down the hall with. There's just not much visibility once you get to a certain point, as the thickness of the wall itself just gets in the way. I asked a friend to be just out of sight on that angle, as you can see. By coming around and using the shotgun, I'm able to blow off the front part of the wall where it's still destructible and can get rid of that extra material. Now when I go back, I can see the attacker where before he was completely blocked to me. This is almost a standard operating procedure for me when I use her now. If these windows are all about visibility, then significantly increasing that visibility gives you an even more effective line of sight to be able to use. Another highly effective way to use them is to peek and pre-fire. Keep a line of sight on a known traffic lane, and then when you see them, strafe and pre-fire while aiming down the sights. Slide back and forth to keep a refreshed line of sight on the attacker, but also to give yourself the protection of the metal wall when they return fire. This setup requires you to have at least two surfaces next to each other where one is reinforced and the other isn't, but it can still be a handy trick to use. You can also use pre-fire when the window drops if you account for the slight time delay. By firing on a target just before it falls away, your first few rounds will hit the glass, but the rest should land on target once the way is clear. Just don't pre-fire too early or else you'll be wasting ammo. Also remember, the attackers will hear the canister break and see the gas cloud on their side, so if they're paying attention, they'll know it's coming. So how do you crack the defensive advantage these create? Well, lots of ways actually. Ash can take them out with a round from her breaching launcher, even with a direct hit to the window, as long as it's on a non-reinforced wall. It's usually not the best idea to put them on those kinds of walls because you can also just shoot at the right angle and hit the canister through the wall too. You also can't attach a breaching charge to the window on a standard wall. It won't give you a valid placement, but if you crouch and then place it underneath, it'll still work. When it blows, it takes out the window with it too in most cases, though once in a while an empty frame might be floating behind. As long as the supporting structure gets taken out, the window usually goes too. Sometimes you can get some extra bang for your buck, like in this example where the charge on an adjacent wall takes out both walls and the window. This only works on non-reinforced walls. If you try it on a metal wall, nothing extra really happens. The same goes for Ash's breaching round. While that worked before on the normal wall, on the reinforced wall, it just doesn't do anything to take it out. Thermite charges, like standard breaching charges, can't be placed on the window itself. But if you duck down, you can place them below. Doing this on a wall with a window actually creates a thermite hole that's twice as wide as usual since it blows out the window as well as the wall underneath it. Sometimes it won't take out the entire section and you could be left with a floating window frame here too. Now remember those clipping issues I was talking about earlier? Well, you can use those from the reverse side to also destroy the thermite charge from the inside. Just be careful not to hit your own gas canister when you melee. When the clipping issue gets fixed, I expect this will probably be fixed too. So if you're watching this at a later date, it may not be something you can pull off anymore if they patch it out. Of course, the other person that can take out metal walls is Hibana. Landing the X-Kairos pellets on the window will take it out. The hole is a little bigger than normal due to the blasting out of the window frame too. But like thermite, you can take advantage of this fact with some different placement. If you instead shoot the charges so that they overlap the bottom lip of the window frame just a little bit, you can actually create a hole that's twice as big. It will make the standard hole below it, plus take out the window. For the price of one Hibana charge, you now have a vaultable hole, and you still have 2 more charges in reserve. Of course, that same clipping glitch comes into play here too. You can melee these charges from inside the wall and take them out, but you better get all of them because even one going off would still take out the entire window. The other person that can really rain on Mira's parade is Twitch. Her shock drone can come in and shoot the canister out and drop the bulletproof glass, creating a free murder hole for the attackers. So it's going to be really important for defense to stop that shock drone if it's in play. Capito's asphyxiating bolts don't break the canister as an area of effect weapon, which makes a certain amount of sense, but even a direct hit to the canister with one of his bolts won't break it. Considering even one of his smoke bolts causes a couple of points of damage on player contact, and that a taser dart from Twitch's drone would drop it, I thought this would work, but it doesn't. Given the clipping issues, I was half expecting a nitro or similar explosive to set it off from the opposite side, but it seems safe, so at least there's that. Fuse cannot place his cluster charges on the window. It treats it just like the rest of the metal wall around it in that regard. It won't even allow him to try. We tried several times to get the pucks to detonate the canister by filling a small room with them, but we never could get it to go off despite the wall being covered in blast marks showing it was hit by the area of effect. Maybe if a puck just happened to land directly on the canister or something, but for explosive splash damage, it doesn't seem to be enough to break the canister open. The last thing we wanted to try to see was if the mirror was reflective enough for Blitz to flash himself, or if it was tinted enough to prevent the flash from translating through. The answer was no on both counts. Blitz's flash shield treats it as though it's just a normal glass panel even when the mirror is in place. So who does Mira pair up well with? Well, Mute and Bandit are obvious choices. That'll help prevent Thermite and Hibana from using their gadgets on it. Some gadgets are affected by placement order and destroy the object, but here it doesn't matter. Placing a window on a wall either before or after it's been jammed or electrified doesn't adversely affect either gadget. Mute's signal jammers have the added bonus of helping block Twitch's drones if used effectively. In fact, anyone with a deployable shield that sets them up in doorways will help keep Twitch drones out. Another very interesting combo is Tachanka. Now that he has the shield on his turret, the new windows are placed at just the right standing height that he can shoot through them and he's completely protected. Coming around the corner to see this can be a daunting sight for sure. Unfortunately, Smoke doesn't make as good of a pairing as I had hoped for. His gas doesn't leak through the window. Even when you drop it and open the panel up, the gas still stays neatly on the inside. You have to actually be touching the wall to get any contact damage. It will, however, block line of sight with the window down, kind of like an improvised smoke grenade for defenders if you need it. Castle can also pair well with her because the two can really funnel where people go, especially when used outside of the objective to close off areas where attackers might not waste time breaking down the barricades, but still close off rooms they won't get into. Then you can begin to funnel people into areas where you can watch them with their mirrors. Mira is a very strong addition to the game, with excellent weapons and a potentially very useful ability. Her strengths are more toward objective defense due to her slower speed and the fact that her ability really does help out on the objective. But don't be afraid to experiment with it though and try setting it up in non-objective areas and see the kinds of things you can do with it there too. Unfortunately, until the clipping issues with her mirror are resolved, she's going to be somewhat broken. Once fixed, and I'm sure they'll do it as quickly as they can, then I think she'll be really useful if played well, especially when used with some of the pre-fire strategies I talked about earlier, as well as enhancing their field of view by blasting out the sides of the wall on the outer edges of the windows, giving you that much more extra line of sight to work with. Tomorrow we'll take an in-depth look at Jackal, so be sure to watch for that. So what do you guys think of Mira? What other ways can you think of to use her ability? What are some of your favorite spots to set it up as you learn to use her more? Let me know down in the comments below or share with me over at IcyCat25 on either Facebook or Twitter. If you want to stay up to date on all the latest news and information, operator guides, walkthroughs, tips, tricks, and more for Rainbow Six Siege, then please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.